What's going on, my friends that watch this channel? I'm singing because it's cold. And therefore, if I sing, I forget that it's cold. Yeah, it got cold here, folks, in Robeson County, North Carolina last night. And I mean, it got cold. Wind started blowing. Temperature started dropping, I guess, about 11 o'clock last night. And I mean, folks, it really took a dip down here. Woke up this morning, it was somewhere in the ballpark, about 43 degrees outside, give or take. And I think tonight, when the temperature drops again tomorrow morning, it's supposed to be in the upper 30s. It's, you know, par for the course for this time of year. Needless to say, hopefully it'll kill off some of the mosquitoes and flies that have been lingering around this year. All right, enough of the weather and the pleasantries. Let's get on to today's topic. And that is tomorrow. Today's topic is tomorrow. What am I specifically referring to, folks? Election Day. There are many people that are waiting till tomorrow to go and vote. I commend them for that. Me and Mrs. Old Soldier, we decided to go ahead and knock ours out. We've already cast our votes. We've already done our civic duty. And the reason I'm bringing this up, apparently here in North Carolina, I think it was, it says Alamance County. A group was pepper sprayed by local law enforcement, and there's two conflicting stories going on. One is that the people were blocking and barring entrance into a voter site. I think about it for a minute. And were harassing people going in to vote. The other side of the story is these people had a permit to protest. Then there's another one, and it's here in North Carolina, in Elizabeth City, I believe it was. Dan Bishop, our representative for Robeson County in a certain district, I forget all the other counties he covers. It might not have been Elizabeth City, but it was one of the voting districts that's, I guess, under his purview, where election workers were basically telling people who to vote for and who to circle on their ballots. It's a complete violation of election laws. And of course, they're supposed to be representative from each party there, and even a neutral party, I think, to observe and monitor. Well, the conservative/Republican observer filed 4 incident reports, and finally the judge assigned to that particular election site told the Republican observer he or she had to leave. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing going on. You need to leave. So I'm hoping that Dan Bishop and his observer have reported this to the State Board of Elections and also to the State Bureau of Investigation. Not that I trust Roy Boy Cooper Scoopers to do anything about it, but it needs to be reported nonetheless. So those are some of the voter discrepancies here in North Carolina I'm starting to hear about. The bottom line is the polls have a skewed opinion of what's going on, but what they're not telling you is really the truth of the matter, and other sources are starting to come out and report it, you know, that President Trump's margin of error is well within the margin of error, if you garner what I'm saying. Apparently his campaign stops in certain battleground states have begun to change the tide of things, supposedly. Folks really won't know until after tomorrow, but tomorrow will be, I'm not going to use the term exciting, but I will say that it will definitely be a day that will be marked in history in the elections of this nation. So for those of you that have not voted, that intend to go and vote tomorrow, use caution, be careful, vote for who you think's the best person for the job. That's all I can tell you. I cast my vote. I voted for who I did. But don't let anybody. I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. Time change and insomnia and pain have all played havoc with my sleep schedule this week. But don't let anybody intimidate you as to who you're going to vote for. One way to keep that from happening is go to the poll in numbers with like-minded people. Is one way. I can tell you, there's always strength in numbers, both physical and moral. The other is, if anybody threatens you, report it immediately. Still cast your vote. At the end of the day, if somebody asks you as you leave the voting site who you voted for, it's absolutely none of their business. It doesn't matter if it's a pollster or if it's somebody intending to do you harm if you didn't vote for the candidate they support. People think it still doesn't happen, but it does. During, I think it was Barack Obama's second term, it might have been the first, I can't remember which. But there was the group from the Black Panthers that was at a voting precinct in Philadelphia. In front of the precinct, in their black fatigues and their face masks, and they had baseball bats and clubs. Just call it the way it is, folks. And of course, when that all came to fruition and made national headlines to an extent, nothing was ever done about it. At least to my knowledge. I don't recall any follow-up news stories to it. Don't recall any charges being filed against the group or the individuals. Don't remember any of that happening. These are things you need to remember if your intention is to vote for the left. So keep that in mind, folks. This election is crucial. It is critical. You might not like Donald Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. I like what he's doing, though. I like the policies he implemented. I don't care for his rhetoric at times. I really don't. But I've learned to overlook that for what he has actually done for our country. Some would argue, well, that's fine, argue it. I never said he was perfect to begin with. I personally believe he picked a good vice president. Some might disagree with me on that. But the other side of things, the left, again, I've given you my prediction. If Joe Biden wins, what's going to happen? One of three ways they're going to take him out of office shortly after he takes the oath of office. Okay? And there's another thing you need to consider, folks, if that happens, and if the Democrats maintain the House, and I'll get to that in a second, but either Joe Biden's going to wind up dead. That's the easiest way for Kamala Harris to assume the presidency. The second one would would be that they're going to remove him via the 25th Amendment because he's physically and mentally unfit for the presidency. Strong possibility. And given his gaffes of late, wouldn't really be hard to get a doctor probably to sign off on that and get everything in place needed to make that happen. Or third, his own party will turn on him and fully expose the Hunter Biden scandal, implementing him, forcing him to resign, such as Nixon had to resign due to Watergate. I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm saying the circumstances would be similar. So he would resign from office before taking office. Those are the three ways they'll remove him. He'll be removed from office after the inauguration, and Kamala Harris will become the president. And now, folks, here's the evilest of all. Nancy Pelosi would become the vice president of the United States if the Democrats maintain control of the House. See, that's the unknown variable here. If the House is retaken by the conservatives, then whoever the new Speaker of the House would be would become the vice president. And you'd wind up in a situation where you'd have a president of one party, a vice president of another. Okay. So that was the whole thing when Barack Obama was president and John Boehner was Speaker of the House, was that if Barack Obama had to resign under scandal, Joe Biden would have become president and John Boehner would have become the vice president. See, just like Richard Nixon, first, what happened first, if you don't recall history, his vice president was brought up on charges. I'd have to go back in history, but it was a corruption scandal. So Gerald Ford at the time was the Speaker of the House, so he became the vice president. And then when Richard Nixon resigned, Gerald Ford was sworn in as president. See, Gerald Ford's the only president that's ever held the office without being elected. And I say elected to the presidency. He was elected as a member of his, as a House member for his state, which was Michigan at the time, I believe. If memory serves me correct, he was from Michigan. Okay. So that's how this whole thing could play out, folks. That's why this election is critical. And of course, the strategy was then and is now. A lot of people are holding their votes close to their chest that have not voted yet. But my prediction is that President Trump will win. And I say that, and to say this is that why would Joe Biden need to go to Minnesota to stump? Minnesota was a hard blue state. So why would Joe Biden need to go campaign there when Pennsylvania is a lot tighter? North Carolina. So he sent his vice presidential candidate, I think it was last night she was in Fayetteville. By the way, Fayetteville stinks this morning. Miami-Dade County, Florida. More Republicans have voted early and by mail-in than Democrats. And right now the percentage is about half the Republican voter base has voted in that county. Miami-Dade County, folks, if you don't know, I said half the Republican voter base, half the voter base has voted. But it's a predominantly blue county, and it's a heavily populated county. But there has been talk with the Democrats that they are extremely worried about that county turning red as far as the vote goes, as far as voting for Donald Trump. And if you recall last time, during the last election, Florida, the night of the election, Florida kept going back and forth, okay? There was a lot of back and forth with Florida. And at the end of the night, Donald Trump pulled Florida. There's one prediction locally in Florida that Florida will turn like that as far as red when it's all said and done. I don't know. I'm getting various bits and pieces, trying to put them together as best that I know how. Ohio is another big state that's considered a swing state. But I think if they look at the fact that Joe Biden is going to try and end fracking and coal production, a lot of people realize it, but Ohio has a fair amount of that, along with West Virginia, Kentucky, okay? And these people in these places, they need to remember that when they go to the polls, that you've got a presidential candidate that's basically looking to end their livelihood. And finally, I'll keep it like this. Hey, folks, if you believe in your right to bear arms and defend yourself, you need to think long and hard if you're considering voting for Joe Biden. Because his vice president is extremely adamant about taking your guns and your right to protect yourself. You combine that she's been considered the most liberal senator in the Senate, which the ultra far left wants to defund the police. So you think about this for just a second. Potentially, you could have a president that's going to, one, take your guns, and two, defund the police to the point that you have no protection other than the armed mobs that will be roaming your neighborhood when it's all said and done. And that, again, is the next step towards communism, which is their end goal. Okay? Their end goal. So, again, if you haven't got out and gone and voted, here in North Carolina, the early voting ended Saturday. I believe the polls reopen tomorrow. Well, yeah, they do, because tomorrow's election day. The polls will reopen tomorrow. Go vote. You might not think it matters, but it does. Tell you one to go follow on Facebook and website, whatever the case may be. If you haven't done so already, is Dan Bongino. You don't know who Dan Bongino is? He's a former law enforcement officer, former Secret Service officer. He was in the Secret Service during the Clinton administration. He is a conservative commentator. And the man's got a lot of common sense insight on some things. You need to go check him out. But I've been watching a lot of his clips from his podcast. And again, he's not saying this election's a shoo-in for Donald Trump. He's along my lines thinking, there is that possibility that Joe Biden's campaign could win it. But the things he's hearing, maybe it won't, but he'll be the first to tell you this election is important. Go vote. Go vote. Again, some of you think that it's not going to matter. I'm not going to try and convince you, but I'll just tell you that it does. And you need to go vote. With that being said, folks, I'm going to get off here. Y'all stay safe. After you do vote tomorrow, go home. Just kind of hunker down, because I still have my prediction that all hell will break loose the next day. Just prepare yourselves as best you can. Do your civic duty. Go home, hunker down, and just pray nothing happens, but be prepared just in case it does. Until tomorrow, my friends, God bless, take care. Soul Soldier out.